You are listening to the Freedom Podcast with Van Moody. Our desire is that you begin to live in freedom every day. Freedom in your mind, freedom in your finances, freedom from the external pressures of life. Prepare to be transformed as we seek to be free, mind, body, and soul. Let's get started.
Interestingly, in our How to Be a Man curriculum, there's a week where we're going to actually talk about how a man recognizes his imperfections, right, and learns from them. And so once again, I think the biblical account is the one we have to rely on. And I don't know that I have found a perfect individual in Scripture except Jesus. But yet, there are so many men that God uses, Old and New Testament, that are flawed, that are broken. But yet you do see the redemptive work of God in that. And I think we have to hold on to that. Once again, separating being from doing. Understanding who we are by the way that God made us. But then understanding that in the doing, we will make mistakes. And I don't think that it's the mistakes that a man makes that disqualifies him from his responsibility. I think it's how he processes those mistakes, whether he learns from them and gets better, or whether he runs from them, doesn't acknowledge them, allows those things to define his life. I think that's the fork in the road. All of the best men that I know have a lot of wisdom, but that wisdom often was gained through mistakes, through dropping the ball. But they got better. They didn't become bitter. They didn't allow those mistakes to define them. And I think that that's a part of the essence of what it means to be a man. It's that you get up every day, you got cuts and bruises, and you got knocked down the day before, but you learn from it and you shoulder that responsibility and you move forward. And you move forward in a better way because, I got knocked down, but I got up. Yeah, and what's so profound about surrender is in those moments of surrender, that's actually where we find the strength to be who God called us to be. It's almost like the difference between real strength and pseudo strength. I think apart from God, what we really have is pseudo strength, right? And you see all of these guys putting on these masks and putting on these airs and projecting something. That's really just a cover up. But in surrender, we get real strength. Like I think about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Which was surrender all day, but it was also the vulnerability of like, God, this is hard. But yet God gives him the strength that he needs to go to the cross through that encounter. And so, I think it's a really important juxtaposition between pseudo strength and real strength. And all of us have had all kinds of life encounters to know that pseudo strength ain't good enough. No. It's not gonna help you when life hits, right? What pseudo strength will do is it will really put you on blast as a faker. But the real strength from God is what will get you through.
The verse, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not to your own understanding, but in all our ways acknowledge him that he shall direct thy paths, as you go King James, right?
Yeah.
There's a part of us that we put up the front because we're not fully trusting that God is going to take care of us if we drop it.
That's real talk, man.
That's it. That's true.
We put the front up so that way we're protecting ourselves. And so that way we whenever comes our way, we make sure, hey, look, no problem. I got no worries. I'm going to handle it. And so if we ever drop the guard, we're concerned that somebody else is going to take advantage of us. Somebody else is going to get the upper hand. Somebody else is going to hurt us. But in order for us to actually get the real strength that you're talking about, we got to drop the guard.
Yeah.
And we have to fully trust God, like David. David, I think, is a wonderful example.
Yeah.
Because for all the strength, and he did incredible things as a before he was even king.
Yeah.
But he fully trusted God. Yeah. That God was going to take care of him no matter what the situation. We take failure and we'll magnify it.
Yeah.
So that our failure and our mistake actually becomes a trap. That's where we get stuck.
Yeah.
It's like the whole plan is for you to mess up until you stay right there. Don't keep going. You know, don't stop swinging, give it up, we're done. And that's the part where, and even for me personally, I'm hard on myself. When I know I've messed up, I am extremely hard on myself. And that's the part where I don't show myself grace. Yet God has so much grace for me to keep going when he's telling me, no, you can't stay here, you gotta get up. And that's the part where, for me, many times it's like, I have to listen to what the Lord is telling me instead of leaning to, you know, hey, this is what I feel. This is how I feel. I feel like staying right here. I messed it up. I can't believe I did this. I can't believe who I hurt. I can't believe I was a fool and all of this other stuff. But God said, get up and keep moving.
That's good. You know, one thing, Bishop, you actually taught me this, and you model it a lot too, is that the goal really in your leadership and manhood is not perfection, but it's really integrity.
Yep.
You know, like integrity being like I have the self-awareness to know that I missed it, and then I can own up to it. And in owning up to it, you know, there's a chance for like restoration. So I think about Peter, you know, Jesus tells Peter that he's going to deny him. And Peter's like, no, you know, I'm not going to do it. And then, of course, he ends up doing it. But Jesus has the wherewithal and wisdom to come back and then restore Peter by first making him own up to it, essentially.
Yeah.
But then he allows Peter this second chance at life. And he's like showing him this pattern of like, you know, falling, but owning up to it and then being able to move forward.
Yeah, that's huge, man.
That owning up piece of it, that's the manhood piece
Yes.
of it. That's where, you know, we always want, what does it mean to be a man? Owning your failures.
Yeah, man.
There's some powerful moments if I just think about my own life.
Yeah.
When my grandmother fell ill, and she stroked. I mean, she wasn't doing well. She was in the hospital. I think I was 12. And the emotions of everything, we literally had just buried her brother when they got the call that my grandmother, they found her on the ground. So we had just buried at a funeral. So we had just gone through the motions of that, which is a great uncle of mine. We hadn't even, finished eating. We got food before it got the call. Wow. So now we got to transition from that place to go to the hospital, and the emotions of everything, and knowing that my grandmother isn't doing well. She did she did pass away, but I'm thinking about the moment, and what sticks out to me is there's this moment where I hadn't seen my dad, and I got my family and we're all in the waiting room. And I just left to go find him. And I saw my dad down at the end of this hallway, and it was near my grandmother's room. And I remember running to him, and I completely just broke. And he just held me. The moment, why that sticks out to me is because he didn't tell me to stop crying.
Yep.
He didn't tell me, toughen up. He didn't tell me any of those things. He held space for me to be vulnerable in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I really just don't know. That every man needs that.
Absolutely.
Every man needs another man to just say, yo, I'm gonna hold space for you to just be vulnerable for a moment.
Yep.
Yeah. And I can appreciate that from my father because he did that same thing. And the interesting part about it is his side of the family, especially all of my uncles, all of them are deceased, but they were not emotional men at all. At all. That side of the family probably is the least side that we spent time with. But he was one that was a little bit different as far as how he handled that with me coming up. And so I did have a space for that. I wasn't, I didn't feel like I could not be vulnerable to him emotionally. And I felt that was a safe space for that. But he handled it differently, knowing that his other brothers and being around them, nah, they were hard as steel when it came to that kind of stuff. I never really saw them. I saw him cry, but them, I never saw that. But he gave me that space. So to your point, it's just the comfort that I had knowing that I had that opportunity, to have that space was tremendous. Yeah.
Wow.
The poorest person on earth is the person without faith. Humanity has been led to a critical crossroad, wondering if there is an alternative to the world as we have made it. In essence, a lot of people have simply stopped believing in anything or anyone. They have simply lost their faith in faith. While it is absolutely tragic to lose a job, to lose a spouse, to lose a child or home or business, these are not the greatest losses one can experience. The greatest loss in life is the loss of belief. When one loses the ability to believe, one loses both faith and hope. When hope is lost, purpose is canceled, and life is robbed of meaning. Belief is the raw material required for commitment, persistence, and faithfulness. No man or woman can live beyond their belief, for without faith, all hope is lost. As a person whose life has been radically transformed by genuine faith, Dr. Van Moody has a passion for helping people understand what real biblical faith is and why it's so important. If our belief is gone, our life shrinks because possibilities are limited and our expectations are low. Believe is a must-read for anyone wanting to understand real biblical faith in order to believe big and live a life full of endless possibilities and limitless opportunities. Visit vanmoody.org or anywhere books are sold to get your copy today.
I want to show our audience and those what a wounded person looks like. I want to tell a story. The story goes like this. We pulled up into Burger King's parking lot. This is in year 1 of my marriage. My wife is pregnant with my oldest daughter. She's now 22 years old. All right, she's pregnant, so the baby's in the belly. I look at the menu. I say to Alicia, what would you like? She said, I would like a number 2. I'm looking at the menu. She never orders that. I said, are you sure? I want a number 2. I said, but are you sure? I said I want a number 2 right now. Good. Her hormones is probably off, right? So I'm like, okay. So I said, hi, can I take your order? I said, give me a number 2 with the orange juice. And I said, and then give me a number 1, which is what we normally order. And I ordered this, that, right? So cool. All right, we get up to the window. I pay for the food. Give me the food. I get on the route, whatever, the Westchester Pike in Pennsylvania, and we on our way to church on Sunday morning. All right. I say, hey, can you pass me my food while I drive? So okay. She looks in the bag. She says, well, I see this and I see this. I said, well, that's what you ordered. Right? And she said, you know that's what I don't normally order. I said, but I was asking you.
Multiple times.
As I was looking at the menu, right? Now, I want to show you what a wounded person looks like. I'm not talking about my wife. I'm talking about me, right? So I don't even get mad about the food. But we're driving down Westchester Pike. I put my window all the way down, right? I'm just driving the window. It's a beautiful day. I take the whole bag of food and I throw it out the window. And I put the window back up. And then I just keep driving to church. We have a 35-minute drive in silence. Because I threw my pregnant wife's food out the window with mine too. All because I was upset about not knowing how to communicate in that moment.
Yeah.
That's what a wounded person does. You know. Now years later, we laugh about it, but it wasn't funny when it happened. Not for her. For me, I'm being a man. Like, oh, well, I'm gonna show you. I threw all the food. Now we both hungry.
Man, let me tell you why that's so profound. Because I'm thinking about how many marriages have been thrown out the window. You know, how many relationships with children have been thrown out of the window. How many career opportunities and open doors that God clearly provided have been thrown out of the window because we're wounded, but we don't know how to talk about our wounds, express our wounds, so that according to James, we can be healed.
Bishop, I think I'm very thankful for the Be Free. I have to say this because something that we opened up with in our session class was the two trees. There's a tree of knowledge of good and evil, and there's a tree of life. So I've realized, past, present, that my responses, I had been choosing the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the knowledge of how to deal with things, with good things, and then what I thought the knowledge of how I handle evil things, and wasn't really choosing life. There's an old saying that says there are men who walk through the forest and they see no trees. And so I have been, at times not realizing, I'm saying, I'm operating sometimes in such a space, not seeing everything that's happening, or the effects of everything, or what exists in that.
No, I think you're spot on. I think a lot of times when we don't control our emotions, part of the reason why we don't is because we don't see any trees. We are not counting the cost of the collateral damage and impact of what will come of this decision. We're just not counting the cost. Our emotions get the best of us, and we go. And sometimes that's blowing up on the people that you love. Sometimes that's a decision from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil instead of living from the tree of life. Sometimes it's just a bad decision, right? I often tell people that one of the easiest ways to defeat the enemy is to do the opposite of what your flesh wants to do, because the enemy traffics in our flesh. Right? But when you lose control and you're not in control of your emotions, man, your flesh is on fire, and you're immediately going to do, maybe cussing somebody out. It may be you see a fine woman walking by and you're like, yo, I want that. I mean, that's all flesh, right? And a lot of times we engage in that without any understanding of the collateral impacts. And it is only after we do it and everything falls apart, or we're having to wrestle with the repercussions, that we then look back and say, that's a bad decision. But one of the things that I think we have to stress for our audience is what God wants is for us to choose, Him, and to choose the way of the Spirit instead of the flesh first, not after the fact. Is there grace for our mistakes? Yes. Does God allow, plenty of opportunities for repentance? Unlimited, right? But real men, mature men, biblical men, godly men understand that I have to control my emotions and my flesh and choose, to live by way of the Spirit. When the Bible talks about not gratifying the desires of the flesh, because that ultimately leads to destruction. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Freedom Podcast. If you find inspiration, education, or fulfillment in our episodes, consider becoming a partner. Your donation ensures that we will continue delivering quality content alongside some of today's leading experts. Connect with us by becoming a Freedom Friend, a Freedom Champion, or a Freedom Funder. Together, we will continue to produce content that provides hope and healing. Thank you. Your generosity is appreciated.